Hey everyone, it's Jason Pannone, Head of Reference and Cultural Assets Manager here at the East Hartford, Connecticut Public Library. The subject of this video is called Intermediate Internet Searching. And it's really meant for people who do not have a lot of experience with internet searching, who might not be very comfortable with internet searching, looking for some tips on how to improve their searching, make it a little more focused, take advantage of what's out there. So if you have a lot of experience with internet searching, this is not the video for you, and you should immediately stop playing it and go find something else. Haha. So with that being said, I am going to move to the next slide. Obviously, if you're watching this, you can read. I am not going to read this to you, but this is basically what we're going to cover in this video. Some examples of search engines uses, the limits, some tips, and just that no search is perfect. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through it. So first off, Search Engine 101. What are examples of search engines? You've probably heard Google. In fact, it's so common it's now become a verb. To Google something means to search it. Google is not the only player in town, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Microsoft Bing is out there if you happen to use Internet Explorer or the newer versions of Microsoft's browsers. Yahoo is still out there, one of the early players in the internet from the early 1990s. It's still there, very good search engine. And one that I've seen a lot of people use lately is called DuckDuckGo. That's basically no ads. It does not track your searching. So if you are concerned about Google taking your information and storing it and refining your searches, that way, if you have issues with that, DuckDuckGo is a really good search engine that you can use. There are others out there. There are people who still like AltaVista, Northern Lights, and some of those some of those search engines from way back when. They're still there. So know that these four are not the only four that are out there. You do have options. Lots of things you can do with search engines, like search for text, search for images. You can find books, whether in print or electronically. You can find videos. Say you need to do a quick math calculation, or you're watching some British cooking show where they make reference to uh, temperatures in Celsius, and you need to figure out what that is in Fahrenheit. You're going on a trip. When we can travel again, it's the time of this video. It's COVID-19, and travel is very limited. You can figure out how much currency you need. You can also use it for maps, shopping, translation, and a lot more. There's really a lot you can do with search engines. However, there are limitations. As you see on the left, paid ranking. What does that mean? Google, for example, the more you pay, the higher in the rankings you appear, so that sometimes companies will pay to have their their results come up first. So it may not necessarily be the best or right answer for you, but because they pay to play, that can be a little bit misleading. Another thing is advertising. This is one thing about Google that I don't really like, is they put lots of ads right above your search results, so that unfortunately sometimes you click on an ad and you get down this rabbit hole that is nowhere where you need to go. And if you don't notice the tiny little ad label next to it, you might get lost in a rabbit hole and have to get yourself out. Thirdly, no one search engine covers the entire internet. Most of them do a pretty darn good job of a good chunk of it, but sometimes it might be better if you're not finding it in Google. Try Bing and see what results you get. Fourthly, not everything is online. It won't be, whether from copyright, money, time, effort, you name it. Not everything is online, and not everything is easily found online. Some things are buried, and it will take a while to find them. So keep that in mind. And finally, there is no real way to determine the quality or trustworthiness of search results. Meaning, in short, not everything you find online is true. I know that may seem kind of obvious, but to some people who think that if it's online, it's true, no, it is not. You really have to be careful, and sometimes you really do have to do your homework and sift through a lot of garbage to find the gems that you're looking for. So advanced search forms, where do you locate them and when should you use them? I am going to hop out of this presentation for a minute and I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to get rid of that because we don't need it. This is the basic Google search engine. And let's say you can see a whole bunch of things that I was looking for. We don't need to see that. We don't need to see that. It's actually searches that I do from home because I have my account synced at home. But let's just say I want to search for a moose pullover sweater. And you see what comes up and you see what I mean by ads. So here's an ad right here, right here. It's very, very small. So maybe you do want to get something at Joseph A. Bank, but got all this other stuff here. Now let's say you want to refine it a little bit. So if you go to settings, and you'll see advanced search. Now you'll notice that if I do this, it's going to find the word moose, the word pullover, and the word sweater anywhere in a website. But say if I want to find moose pullover sweater, that's going to search for that exact phrase, which let's see what happens when I run that search. And you see it gets rid of the ads and it gets a lot more, much more refined results. So let's go back. Let's say I don't want cotton. So if I put a minus and put that there, now I'm only going to get vintage or wool. All this, I don't know why it's still saying cotton. Interesting. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. I see. So if I get rid of cotton, yep, still got cotton. But anyway, technically that should get rid of that. And let's say I only want stuff in English, from the US, updated in the last week. So you can really refine it down using this advanced search function. The problem is that you have to run a search in Google before you can get to that. I don't know why they no longer make this available. It's kind of annoying up front. Anyway, so now we're going to play from the current slide. And we're going to go on. So search strategies. First question, and this comes from my library school reference professor. First thing, identify the question. What are you asking for? And he always used the metaphor of it's kind of like fishing for trout. If you don't know where trout live and you don't know what bait they like, you can spend a lot of time casting your fishing pole and you'll never catch the trout because you never figured out that you were looking for trout in the first place. So first thing is basically to sit down and ask the obvious question, what exactly am I looking for? Because if you know what you're looking for, you'll know how to set up the search, and that right there is 75% of getting it, of having a good chance of finding what you're looking for. My professor always said, how you run a search and how you set it up is more important than knowing the sources, because if you don't set the search up correctly, you will never find what you're looking for. So in short, know all you can about the trout. Identify the question, what you're looking for, and that will help you. Focus your search. My thing is always to start small and then work your way out. Or if you're familiar with Occams Razor, which is a principle that holds that do not multiply entities beyond necessity, or in other words, the obvious answer is generally the correct one. So if you know you need tax forms from the IRS, you're going to go to the IRS website. You're not going to do a general search. You're going to go search something like IRS tax forms, and boom, you're right there, rather than doing something a lot broader. In general, and this obviously there will be exceptions, there are always exceptions, but my advice, start small and then work your way out to a broader category. As you saw, quotation marks and other search limiters can be a big help, because if you use quotation marks, that often searches a phrase, especially if you're looking for a phrase. Dates, if you know something happened between, say, 1950 and 1955, put those dates as limiters. That way, you're only looking in that area and you're not looking for stuff outside of it. Synonyms, the synonym game. Does your word have are there other words that mean the same thing as your word? When I worked in financial services, people would often talk about market slices. Can you talk about piece of the pie or segment or thing like that? Think of words that are similar and related in meaning. Sometimes that can help you find things. Sorting and evaluating results. This gets back to, and you can see it's the cartoon. This gets back to not everything is true on the internet. Just because you found it in the top 5 answers doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Um, there's a lot of misinformation, quote unquote, fake news out there, misleading stuff, conspiracies, all the rest of that. So it is crucial that you stop and, especially if it's not something obvious like an IRS tax form, to really, really be careful about looking at your results and saying, well, are these correct or are they not? This gets into triangulating results, and addressing confirmation bias. So that means is, well, I found this one thing. Are there other sources that corroborate what this one source is saying? The flip side of that is you have to be aware of confirmation bias. And this is a documented psychological fact that often you will look for sources that confirm what you're already biased to believing. So if you listen to a certain news network, you are more likely to confirm what this one news network says with other similar news networks that have a similar slant. Or if you are into alternative medicine, you may only focus on alternative medicine sites and not look at more more mainstream sites. Or just because you found something on a mainstream medical site, you don't check with your doctor because such and such a site said. Uh, so this article that I've listed down here, it's a great article to check. They seem to keep running it every so often. This is the most recent version of it that I've found. It's well worth your time to read. Ask for help. Call us here at the library. We are absolutely here to help. If you're absolutely stuck and can't figure out where to go, call one of the librarians. I think between all of us here at the library who have reference experience, there's probably something close to 100 years of experience. We've been doing this forever, and we've been around since the Wild West days of the early internet. So we can probably have a good sense of where to look for something or how you might structure a search, and we will help you save a lot of time and frustration. Take a break. My rule of thumb is if I've been searching for an hour, I get up and I walk away and go do something else. Take a coffee break, go for a walk, hang out with your dog, do something else to give your brain a break. And usually, when you come back after a little bit, you'll have a fresh perspective on it. You might think of something different. But my rule of thumb is never search more for an hour at a time, because otherwise, you're just going to drive yourself crazy and set yourself up for a lot of frustration. Finally, know when to say when. If you've checked all your boxes off and you've searched forever and you've only found a few things, then you're done. Sometimes stuff just isn't out there. I know I've had searches where one search, I had to wait 3 months before the information became available, and it was because somebody happened to mention something offhand to me and I found what I was looking for. Another search, I had to wait 2 years because it took that long before the research was published from the time the person asked the question. Um, Sometimes you're not going to find information, and sometimes you'll find limited information. That's okay. It's nothing you did wrong. It's just that's how it turned out. The great thing about searching is the more you do it, the better you get at it. Write stuff down. When you find helpful resources, write them down, keep a list of them. It's going to help you get better and better because now you don't have to keep finding things. You already know where to go uh, when you need answers to a question. And like I said, no search is perfect. As G.K. Chesterton, one of my favorite authors, said, if a thing is worth doing, it is worth doing badly. He did say that in reference to hobbies, but I think it also applies to searching. Um, no search is perfect. Even experienced searchers, we all have our days where we just can't find what we're looking for and we know it's out there. Sometimes we get stumped. You're not alone. So call us if That happens. So I'm going to end this kind of long